Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Dayton Sports Huddle, The Dish. I'm Jeff Lauterbach with Richie Moody, and it's the day after Christmas, Richie, and we're here, obviously all sorts of sports on the TVs, but we're here today to talk about one of our favorites, with your background playing professional baseball, mine being in the sports media and professional baseball. We have Nick Hoffmann from Centerville High School. Thanks for joining us, Nick.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
And a little bit about Nick's background before I turn it over to Richie, because Richie has some fascinating stories about working with Nick. But Nick is a pitcher from Centerville High School who signed with Clemson, last year, I believe?
I signed in November, but I've been committed for around 2 years. After my sophomore year, I really shut the deal, and I was wanting to go to Clemson.
So, long story short, I'm just glad to be talking baseball because that's my love, and obviously lately it's just been all football and basketball. But why don't you tell us about, it's interesting, we were talking before the show about the parallels that both of you had, because you having been recruited by Oklahoma State and a draft candidate early, and Nick being recruited by and signing with Clemson,
Sure,
and also draft aspirations.
Sure, absolutely. It's always fun to not only work with a young man like Nick, but also now he's going down and blazing his own path similar to what I experienced, almost 30 years ago. So it's exciting to not only, we started working with Nick's group when they were about 8 or 9 years old with Coach Lieberman.
Yep.
We'll give a little shout out to him and Jared. They started coming into our baseball facility back then, and it was an awesome time to work with him. But what I want to talk to Nick about is obviously you mentioned Christmas here. It's a great time to talk baseball because obviously it's cold and everybody's still in the football mode and whatnot, and all of us baseball lovers, we're ready for spring training. So the biggest question I was going to ask Nick, as you've grown and matured over the years, what's been the main influence in your life over these last 10 years?
I'd say for the past 10 years, obviously my parents, they really pushed me a lot to do what I love, and my self-drive really pushes me to, I love the game of baseball, I'm passionate for it, so I like to self-motivate myself, but also my parents really push me to be the best I can be.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Nick was very motivated as a young kid to want to be the best. I remember him. He always had that nice loose arm that you want to see as a pitching coach. But the bigger thing is you always want to you see the things that you can't see, and his determination to want to be the best out there on the field was always second to none. As far as me personally coaching him over those years. So it was a pleasure to work with you, and looking forward to following you not only through your college experience and your last year at Centerville High School, but also potentially getting drafted into pro ball as well.
Yep, the Super Sevens are what made my shoulder strong.
Little shout out to Super Sevens. I'll get with you on those. We still teach them, and they, the kids that practice them, they have no arm problems.
That's where it all started.
Tell us a little bit about because that's what we were going to talk about in the program, about how you keep your arm and your shoulder in good shape. But what's the Super 7 concept?
So a lot of this is something that I've had shoulder surgeries. I've had 4 altogether. But when I was playing pro baseball, everything was built around once you get injured. Well, who wants to get injured? When you're a pitcher, because when you're injured, you're on the shelf. And the biggest thing is it's like weightlifting, but you're weightlifting to not only build muscle, build strength, build stamina, and all of those things, but also the most important thing is to stay healthy, so you can stay on the mound. And Nick and his crew. How many times did your guys' arms get hurt back then?
Yeah, not a lot really. Yeah. We'd be sore every once in a while, but you'd be keep doing them because the workout really it builds your muscles that you don't use and tightens those so that when you do use them when you throw, you're not going to be sore or tight. So it really helps.
Yeah, very simple program. It doesn't take a lot of time, and that's probably you mentioned determination. I was going to ask you about the things that we don't see when you're on the field, and how much work do you put in behind the scenes now that you're almost an adult?
Yeah, I'd say 6 days a week at least. Sundays I'm usually off, but Monday through Saturday I usually go every day at least 2 hours. Either it's weightlifting or it's arm care, sometimes I do yoga because it's being flexible as a pitcher is important. So
Absolutely, and I'm sure that I know your parents always talk to you about nutritional and then taking care and doing the right things off the field as well as doing the physical things.
Yeah. So I mean, eating healthy is a big part of being staying healthy, because if your body's healthy, hopefully your muscles and your shoulders and all the joints you use are healthy too. So.
Well, you were talking about before the show also, and this is applicable where you're a Reds fan, but you also have a deep appreciation of the Washington Nationals pitching staff. And most people who follow baseball closely know that that's a staff that has so much potential, but that staff's been ravaged by injuries like Steven Strasburg. And that applies to what you're talking about, where you've been pitching for what, probably 11, 12 years maybe?
Probably around 10 years now, 10 or 11,
So I guess the program, like you were saying, Richie, prevention, being proactive instead of reactive, like so many pitchers having surgeries in the minors or in college or early in their major league career because heck, you start pitching maybe when you're 5 or 6, 7, 8, that age range, and then by the time you do it year round, and then by the time you get 23, 24, then your shoulder or arm gives out.
Sure, there's so many different technological advances that they've made too. I mean, Nick remembers when we started the program, we pretty much handwritten everything down on a piece of paper because, there's something to tracking and the mental and that side effect. I mean, even when you go to a local gym and you watch folks that are lifting, they're writing down their reps, they're writing down their personal best, because it helps you drive and push a little bit further. And what they do now everything is on an iPad and it's tracked, and then it's, now not only with the iPad, they can track your launch angle, they can track your rotation, your spin rate. I mean, you care to elaborate as well, because you're going through a different program now than even when I was teaching it.
So program-wise, pre-throwing, I do some band work, run, and then I do some weighted ball work too, which activates some muscles that a 5-ounce ball doesn't usually get to. And then post-throwing, those are my pre and post, or what I try to do to keep my arm healthy. Post-throwing, I ice after games, and I do some more band work, and running helps too. So that's
How much running do you typically do?
So, depending on how I pitch certain days, I'll run myself a little harder. Other days, just to, in a way, just train harder and make sure I do better the next time. So if I give up an 0-2 walk, I'm gonna run 5 or 10 poles just because I don't want to do that. So it sets myself as a little accomplishment for the next game. So an incentive.
Yeah.
How you talk about the instruction, and you've touched a little bit on the mental side, because we hear about pitching, people who pitch. I'm at a loss for words right now. The pitching or learning to pitch instead of throwing, because obviously a lot of kids early, and a lot of professionals earlier in their career come out and they focus on their fastball. But as you get older, it's important to learn how to pitch instead of per se just throwing. And
sure,
how is that as you prepare for major Division I college baseball? How is that shaping your strategy?
I'd say pitching is real important. As a younger kid, I definitely was more of a thrower because I wanted to throw the ball 100 miles an hour at age 12, but that's probably physically not possible. So pitching,
it's worth the effort though. It's worth the effort to try to throw it 100 miles.
Yeah. Nowadays, I'd say I'm more of a command pitcher with an above average velocity, but pitching, if you don't hit your spots, good hitters will hit the ball. So my thought is that if you don't let them hit the ball, which they're going to do every time, but if you don't let them hit it hard, so if you aim for an inside pitch to try to jam them, weak contact is an easy out, hopefully, if you got defense behind you. So pitching definitely is a huge part, and it's changed through my mindset over the years.
Sure, and exactly what he just talked about. I think you have to have a foundation, and one of the things that we always talked about as when they were younger was, not only with the mechanics, but also what you're focusing on, and you're building those building blocks to get yourself confident to where you have the confidence to throw the ball 100 mile an hour or try to throw it through someone, but also you have the ability to hit that spot when you need to as well to get an easy out. And Nick, he hit the nail on the head just with what he said. You know, he first said, I wanted to throw the ball 100 mile an hour. I know it's not physically possible, but if you heard what he said, second was he talked about the building blocks of trying to hit spots and trying to throw to different, inside pitch to get an easy out. That's all you have to do. And as you build that confidence and you build your ability to do those things.
Well, you're not only known for having an overpowering arm, but you have an interesting story that dates back to when you were 11 or 12 with your trademark, what's become a trademark appearance with your glasses.
Yeah, so when I was 12, we were in Cooperstown. I got hit with a ball right here. I was wearing sunglasses, and the lens from Oakley, shout out to Oakley, they were built so that if a ball hits the lens will cover your eyeball, and it'll hit your eyelid or around your eye so that you don't go blind. So when I was 12, I wrote them a letter after I was hit with that. Actually, the story is that I got hit in the morning. We were in a tournament, and we had 3 games that day. The first game I got hit, and I went to the hospital for the second game to get stitched up. I had 13 stitches. I came back for the championship game. My team won the semifinal game. I came back for the championship game, and I ended up closing it to win. So that was pretty cool moment and memory that I have. So
well, and it's not just a shout out from you, but from myself as well. I had 7 stitches, and I had Oakley's on, and they did the same thing. The lens didn't break, but the frame actually pinched my skin and opened it up. But protected my eyeball as well.
They're going to have to be a sponsor for Dayton Sports Huddle.
We'll have to give them a letter.
But with that, also, I know you have had another story where you've overcome injury, and you were featured on Kettering Health Network site.
So sophomore year, I was bunting and I got hit in the thumb. So I ended up, having to overcome a big impact that pushed me back a little bit. So I just had to train harder every day and just learn how to focus on, even when you can't do, I couldn't throw, for instance, for a month or 3 weeks. So I just had to work every day with my legs or something else, my core, something that I was able to do to get better while I was being pushed back for a second.
Yeah.
And last year, you talked about before the show that you've gone to, as Centerville High School has advanced to the district finals twice. And you had a highlight last year in the sectional finals where you, I believe, struck out 13 and pitched a perfect game against Beaver Creek. How was that as far as ranking with your highlights in your career?
That's probably the biggest moment I've had in my career. I actually that's my second perfect game. I threw one in the MAC tournament when I was 13, and it was the Mark Andrew Crush tournament, which is one of my my family friend's son passed away in a boating accident. So that was a really special one, but doing one in the sectional final against Beaver Creek, who won the G-Walk, was really, really important and special to me. My team really helped me out. They produced runs and fielded the balls when they were hit, so my team was amazing. It was a great game.
Yeah, that's awesome, and I would encourage any folks that are looking for I would say more of the purest baseball games. Go out and watch some high school baseball games, because they're, you don't have to worry about the 3-minute commercials like you do in Major League Baseball. You don't have to worry about a 3.5-hour game. You don't even have to worry about if you go to a college or a Dragons game, some of the entertainment. You get to be there at the game, and you get to watch the purest. And obviously we're very blessed in this area to have talent like yourself. I'm just curious, how long did that game last? Because I'm sure it wasn't more than an hour and 15-minute game.
I believe it was around an hour and 15 minutes.
Exactly. So you know what? If you want to go watch a game in high school baseball, I went out and watched Nick throw, as well as several other local kids in the area, and it's the best hour and 15, hour and a half that you'll ever spend watching baseball. Now all the games are 2-1, maybe every now and then 5-1, but I would rather see good pitching myself, anyways, anytime, rather than. Unfortunately, I played during the long ball era in the 90s, and I got tired of the long ball era.
Yeah.
And, well, this upcoming season, you're a senior. Obviously, you want to go out on a high note, and you have several teammates who are playing or signed with Division I programs, and you have high expectations this year.
Yeah, so I don't know, my grade, senior class for Centerville High School Baseball, we've grown up together. We all started with Mr. Lieberman's baseball team, Centerville CBL, and then we've grown up together. So we have 11 returning, probably 8 of those people were on the team back when we were 8 and played all the way till we were 15. So we're hoping for the best this year, and we want to we all want to play our best game last. That's our mentality, because you do your best game last, you hope for something. Even if you lose and you have your best game, there's a reason that you did that. So.
Yeah, what are some of the goals? Obviously, I know you guys always want to win the GWAC. Any stretch goals that you're looking for, and then any personal goals as well.
As a team, Centerville, part of our mentality is we want to win a state championship. 1928 is the last one, so it's been a while. But we've got the past 2 years district titles, which is a really amazing moment because there's only 3 times you get a dog pile: a district title, a regional title, and then a state title. So being a part of a dog pile is a special moment. So we'd like to get back to that at least, but who knows what can happen.
Sure. Any personal goals that you're looking for this year?
Personal goals. I don't have a ton right now, but I'm sure they'll build up in the moment, or something will change, and my mind will just. Obviously, I want to win most of my games and strike out 100 kids in a year, but that's pretty selfish goals that I don't really.
Well, that's all right. No, I mean, the part of being a baseball player that I think is unique from any other sport is that you have to have individual goals that are also built into team goals. It's very important to have both of those because each person in the game, they impact the game, but yet you're all working for that same common goal. Same thing with I when I coached, one of the things we always talked about was batting. I mean, some people always want to, like the Yankees. You and I always go banter back and forth, Yankees and Red Sox. My Yankees. I'm a big fan of the 3-run homer. But when I coached, I was a fan of small ball, and let me see 4 singles in a row. Let me see 5 singles in a row.
Yeah.
A little different mentality from high school to pro baseball, but to that.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, high school baseball and pro baseball is close. We obviously high schoolers, we want to see a bunch of home runs, but if you're a pitcher, you don't want to be giving those up. So
that's right.
It's pretty blunt like that, pretty plain like that. So I don't know.
Well, that's an interesting parallel because. Between the Red Sox and Yankees, that's a perfect example of baseball at any level because the Yankees relied so much on power and they didn't have that great of a pitching staff, where the Red Sox had a pretty consistent pitching staff, but they could score runs anyway. So when you get to the postseason, there's going to be fewer 3-run home runs and you're facing better pitching. So and it parallels that to high school because really, at the level that both of you that you were at and that you're at currently, high school baseball, you really don't see a lot of great pitchers, but when you come across a great pitcher, obviously that's when you have the hour, 15-minute games.
Well, you typically see there's in high school baseball. I mean, Nick is obviously head and shoulders above what an average high school pitcher would be. Mm-hmm. When you make a commitment to a top 10 program like Clemson, you're only talking about maybe 100 pitchers out of how many high school pitchers in the country. You're talking about tens of thousands. So you're in that less than 1% of a baseball player. And when you have someone like him, when you watch even an average high school baseball pitcher, if they know how to spot the ball and they know how to pitch a little bit, difference between throwing and pitching, back to that scenario, you're going to have really good high school baseball games, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's actually a good thing.
Yeah. It's interesting because part of the reason, and we've talked about it before, why we created Dayton Sports Huddle is to focus on the existing, or the former and the current talented high school, college, and pro athletes. And when you translate the pitching, obviously your background, and there's a lot of pitchers who pitch to minor leagues who are still around here, some major leaguers. We're planning on having Travis Lakins on here soon, who is from Franklin and went to Ohio State and really is on the verge of making the Red Sox opening day roster as a relief pitcher. So does that, knowing there's so much talent and people you can turn to, or as examples of Dayton area people who've thrived at high Division I and/or professional baseball, help you?
Yeah, I'd say that pushes me a lot because switching sports here, like Luke Kennard from Franklin or Travis Lakin, it's pretty cool seeing athletes from your town. People come around and talk to you about them, and Sean Murphy right now is with the A's. So his dad's actually on staff with the high school, so every once in a while he'll come around and say, encourage you or tell you something you didn't know before and help you out. So it's really neat when people come back that are pro athletes or still on the verge of making their way up to the big leagues. So it's pretty neat to see that happen, and everybody wants to come back and do that, obviously.
Everybody wants to come back home. I mean, I remember when I got drafted out of high school, that was a big deal. But even bigger than that was coming back from my freshman year of college after we had just played in the College World Series final against University of Georgia. That was even a bigger deal because that was the first time CBS had picked it up on TV, and there was over 2 million viewers, and obviously pitching in front of 40,000 people when you're in college was a big deal back then because it really took the game to another level at that time. And I'm sure that as you've gotten out there and about, that's a goal for you, whether it's college or whether it's pro baseball as well.
Yep, it is for sure.
Now, another thing we were talking about before is you might be faced with a difficult decision that you had a while back as well, as you've committed to a high-level Division I program that really expects to be in the College World Series. So you have that, and then you have the potential to be selected in the Major League Draft during the summer. And I know from reading about your background, that's like a lot of kids, since you were a little kid, you've dreamed of playing professional baseball. So how are you going to weigh that, and what's been said about that to you?
Well, I mean, every little kid's dream is to play professional baseball. That loves baseball or is passionate about it. So, I mean, I just pray, talk to my family, talk to people around me that really matter to me, and I mean, both options are amazing, I think. So I'm just pretty thankful that I'm able to even have both sides of the story. You know what I mean? So.
Well, you got options, and that's always a key, is to have options. And I know you've mentioned before that you had some different people, and then you mentioned even an option that you could go to college for 2 years and possibly be draft eligible at 21 as well.
Yeah. So I turned 21 before the draft, my sophomore or my junior year of college. So I believe, I'm not 100% sure on this, so I know the draft's either your junior year of college out of high school or when you're 21 is what I believe, or all that I know right now. So
unless they change any of the rules, I'm pretty sure you're correct in that. But I mean, what would what would it mean to just be drafted? You don't have to go into how much money would you need or anything like that. But what would it mean to just say, you know what, Nick Hoffmann, you got drafted as an 18-year-old kid?
I think it'd mean a lot. It'd be pretty amazing. It'd be a life goal that I've achieved. Like, I don't know, I've worked my whole life for it, and all the troubles that I've caused my parents traveling for baseball, you know what I mean? It'd be pretty amazing.
It's a big sacrifice for them, and to travel around and drive you around.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a big sacrifice for them. They struggle a lot. They don't struggle a lot, but I make them struggle because, I don't know, I'm just I'm a tough kid to have, I guess. I like to play around.
So when you were drafted out of high school, but you chose obviously to go the college route, what led you to do that?
Well, it was I was drafted in the 11th round by the New York Mets out of high school, and obviously having I got a 50% scholarship. A lot of people think baseball players, they get full scholarships. They don't, unless they're getting some sort of combination of academic money, which is cool, because Division I you get 11.7 scholarships, and typically you have to spread that around to about 25 to 30 players. The biggest thing that I looked at, I mean, it was so overwhelming for my parents. My parents had no clue. My parents were blue collar folks, and I didn't have a clue. So I actually sought out counsel from Tom Holliday, who used to be the head coach, or he was the pitching coach back then. He eventually became the head coach at Oklahoma State, and now his son Josh, who we were just talking off camera, but Josh is now the head coach out at Oklahoma State, and he was 11 or 12 years old at the time, and it was. I tell you, I look back, hindsight's 20/20, but each person needs to make the decision that's right for themselves eventually. And I felt like at that time I needed college to mature more for myself, and not only physically, but also because I was from such a small community, and I really didn't feel like I had that experience and that maturity to handle just going straight into pro ball. So I think each kid has to make that decision, and it's great. Nick's got a good support staff, and that's the other thing. You got to have, close with your parents. You got to have some people that you trust. And especially nowadays, you're allowed, I believe, to get an agent or consult with an agent and talk to them, but can you really trust them? You know, I mean, that comes, are they going to really give you that advice that is really what's best for you? Because you might only have known him for a month in some of these instances.
So when you talk about Sean Murphy, I think that's a great example because I think the A's traded one of their catchers in the offseason.
LaCroix, yeah. So he's, as far as I know, I don't know a lot, but I'm pretty sure he's expected to start in AAA this year. And last year he broke his helmet bone or something. So he was supposed to be in the All-Star, the USA versus World game, but right before that he broke the bone in his hand that sat him out for 6 weeks. So.
Well, and and they always said when and I'm still pretty sure it's the same. When you're in AA, you're a heartbeat away from being in the big leagues, and an injury to someone else, and if they're planning on him being in AAA, who knows what could happen in big league camp? Because I'm sure he'll get an invite there, and if he performs, it's like anything else. It's a sport. What have you did for me lately? And if he goes out and crushes it, he'll be there.
Well, that's a good organization to be in, too, because they, being a small market team, they tend to give their prospects a quicker chance.
Absolutely. It's going to be a great opportunity for him. Looking forward to seeing how he progresses, and hopefully we'll see him in the big leagues.
Well, that's pretty exciting, though, with Centerville, with their recent track record. I know the outfielder at Wright State, Quincy Hamilton.
Yep.
I know I believe he's getting some interest.
He's still young, so.
Yeah. So, but that has to be exciting on your end to see you're in a high-profile program that has people a lot of people have gone to Division I, Division II baseball programs, and people have been drafted.
Yeah, it's nice knowing that you're at a school where kids either want to progress playing baseball and they're not just doing it for gym credit, like some people always want to. So, it's good to have people who like the sport you like with you, because it makes it easier and makes practice more fun.
Yeah, it's kind of changed obviously over the years because when we went through, obviously, Jeff, we had to take phys ed and do a sport. Now I think they give them a lot of different options on if they play an extracurricular sport in high school. So,
well, we're coming down to the final minute. Richie, what would you like to say about? Or do you have anything you?
No, I was just going to tell Nick and wish him the best of luck. Wish you the opportunity of a lifetime. I hope that you do get drafted, so you have a tough option to make on what's going on. And I know you got a great support staff around you to help you make a wise decision. But either way you go, you're going to be very successful. And I always appreciated the opportunity to work with him. And best of luck.
Thank you.
Do you have anything else you'd like to add about this upcoming season and your what lies ahead for you?
Come out and watch Centerville Oaks.
When's your season opener?
I believe it is it's sometime in March. I don't know.
Usually the third or fourth week of March is when they'll start with some scrimmages, but then they'll have some. Are you guys going to Florida this year?
We are for spring break. We're going to Bradenton, to IMG, to play some teams down there, so it'll be real exciting.
So your first home game will probably be back here maybe April 1st after spring break then.
If it's not snowed out.
That's right, as long as it's not snowing. Well, who knows in Ohio.
Yeah.
That's true. Well, we appreciate you being on, Nick Hoffmann, and Richie, this has been a good one, a good program, being able to talk about baseball when it's 30 degrees outside.
Freezing out. Yep.
And everyone, we appreciate you joining us here for the Dayton Sports Huddle, The Dish at Submarine House. Be sure to come down for, there's always specials on beer, great food, always plenty of TVs. It's hard to stay focused when there's all this sports all over the place. But once again, we appreciate you joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next time.